Hello and welcome to Labor Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week's episode of the program, we will give you update information in the world of work and pay. But first, let's take the news. We will be right back.
The Bayelsa state government says staff verification exercise and reforms in the public service have greatly saved the state huge sums of money lost over the years to payroll fraud, ghost workers and age falsification by staff long overdue for retirement. While the state government has promised to look into genuine cases of affected persons, the Bayelsa Unemployed Graduates Forum welcomes the reforms at a solidarity march in support of the state government.
We all know that if this civil service reform is being carried out successfully, it is going to employ a whole lot of jobless youth that are roaming the streets of Yenegua. That is the reason why we are here to support this reform process. And we want to say that all those people that are against this reform process, people should ask them critical questions if they genuinely enter the civil service through the right door.
We are here to support the ongoing reform in the Civil Service Commission. As people, we have the right to seek employment from the state government. We are in support of the fact that people who are in their 70s should leave the system. We are very, very strong. We want to take over from our parents.
It is a win-win situation if the reforms succeed in the civil service and also in the Niger Delta University, Amasoma.
There are a lot of age falsification process that is going on. We want to say the youth, we are ready to take care of our parents, not them to still be there to be giving us stipends. Yes. The youth, we are graduates because they don't want to live there. That is why we are still unemployed. So what the government is doing is to create vacancy for the youth. What Governor Dixon is doing in the civil service is something that will benefit the youth. And if a man is protecting your interests, you should be able to defend him as well. Dixon, we are saying that you should go ahead. Don't be intimidated. God will protect you. God will see you through to make sure that you carry on this process so that the youth will be employed in Bayelsa State.
Political leaders in this state over the years and leaders of the civil service over the years have filled in names of their unborn children and aged parents and relations, known and unknown, earning salaries without coming to work. They know the people who do not come to work, but they prefer to allow those names to stay on our payrolls and collect salaries and use these our hard-working young graduates as part-time workers, paying them peanuts. I almost shed tears when I interacted with a number of them this morning. That nonsense in this state has to stop.
The Bayelsa governor shares more shocking revelations from the civil service.
We have fished out over 500 of such people with questionable academic credentials. We have contacted all the schools to confirm. Another list is being forwarded to me. I've received preliminary briefings that close to another 500 have been identified. So in all, we are talking of about close to 1,000. I've directed the head of service and the chairman of the Civil Service Commission a fresh recruitment process in this state. In the next 2 weeks, once they are ready with their documentation, we will start with about 1,000 young graduates.
Governor Dixon urges unemployed graduates from the local governments to apply when the recruitment process commences. He, however, ruled out prosecutions blaming anomalies in the workforce on the rot in the previous system.
They will write the examination. I want to build and leave behind an effective, competent, disciplined civil service.
A familiar tune in organized labor and one that often heralds another season of fuel scarcity when sung by unions in the oil and gas industry. Once again, NUPENG is bracing up for yet another strike aimed at pressing for better welfare and remuneration packages for its members. And driving this latest agitation is the Port Harcourt zone of NUPENG, which identified 12 companies as defaulters. Affected locations include Rivers, Bayelsa, Cross River, Akwa Ibom, Benue, and all 5 states of the southeast.
The unionized members of NUPENG have a substitute collective bargaining agreement, CPA document, duly endorsed between the management and the union. And if there are areas of friction between management and the employees in the workplace, the best alternative could have been to engage the union and explore every other means of negotiation. But the company, unfortunately, failed to toe this line. And without recourse to the existing CBA between the union and the management, they come on ahead and terminate the appointment of about more than 300 of our members on board Oil Deep Sea, OES. So consequently, after the resolution in our meetings, we hereby give 7 days ultimatum to OES, Deep Sea Offshore, and other anti-union companies, which have also observed within the period, that have also practiced activities that are not in line with the Labour Act as enshrined in Nigerian Constitution.
NUPENG called for urgent intervention by government to avert the looming industrial action.
Based on this development, we are directing all the tanker drivers in the Eastern Zonal Council of NUPENG, all the pump attendants in the Eastern Zonal Council of NUPENG, all the drilling workers in the industry in the Eastern Zonal Council of NUPENG, after 7 days, if there is no counter report, should embark on indefinite action. What I mean by that, they should withdraw their service.
NUPENG says the national body would be compelled to declare a nationwide action soon if nothing is done to address the issues within its Port Harcourt zone.
Solidarity forever for the union makes us strong.
I see it as maybe he's talking from his own point of view, but that is not the view of Nigerian workers. He has promised the whole Nigerian workers that by the 3rd quarter of this year, everybody will start to receive this minimum wage or minimum wages. But and we so much rely on that. So, but for them now for him now to come around and say maybe, he said maybe. He did not say it's not factual. He just say maybe, and that maybe can be another thing. And NSC has given him ultimatum that maybe if there is no minimum wage this year, there will not be election in 2019.
It will be calamitous to the government because workers will resist vehemently if the government reneges that idea. First, the minister who said it happened to be the vice president of the committee set up by the government. And you have seen the reactions of the national Labour leaders against that statement. And at the ILO Convention in Geneva, it was also revolved that should anything tamper with that minimum wage of a thing, all the workers in those systems. In fact, there are some movement now that may become July 2nd, that all workers, both not formal and formal, should sit at home. Which, if it materializes, you will see reaction by July 2. Not to talk of even not to collect. That is what they are envisaging. So there is no point for any government to say they are not going to pay.
On the profile interview segment this week, I will be speaking with the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Ayuba Waba, who is also the vice president representing the Workers' Committee for Africa. He will be telling me why it is of utmost importance that Nigeria actually made a position at the application of standard hearing here in Geneva, Switzerland. Join me. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, looking at one of the concerns or theme of discourse here at the ILO conference, it's equal work for equal pay for women. As a workers' representative, what should Nigerian women expect?
The issue of equality of treatment is a fundamental human right. God has created us male and female, and therefore we must respect the sanctity of God's creation. We should not discriminate, and we should not also have policies at the workplace that will discriminate between male and female. In some countries, even the pay is different, and that's why that very important convention came about. Equal pay for work of equal value. Whether you are a male or you are a female, if you do the same work, you are expected to have equal pay. And it's the centrality of addressing the inequality gap that have existed between male and female. And I think globally there is this issue of gender parity, gender equality, and many words that have been used. And I think it is very, very important because it's the world of work. And therefore, why must we discriminate against male and female at the place of work? In some cases, women have been sacked or discriminated because of their marital status. It ought not to be so. What of men? So I think this is the centrality of the argument, and this is the centrality of the issue of equal pay for work of equal value, which is very, very important and germane because it's a core human right issue.
How would you rate the government's response towards the several challenges Nigerian workers are faced with at the moment?
Well, first is that the expert committee on application of standards, member countries are under obligation to report application of core conventions. And if you look at the report very well, Nigeria for the past 6 years have not reported on that issue. And the report is very clear. So clearly speaking, is also to continue to report on those issues, because whether they are at the subnational level, whether they are at the national level, the issue of ILO Convention is that member countries are held responsible if there is infraction, even by a subnational, like states in the case of Nigeria. So we cannot use that as an excuse to say that, well, this is an issue that is supposed to be handled by a state. No, it is the member state that is a member of ILO, and the conventions are also domesticated by member states, and therefore it is actually an obligation on every country to report on those very core conventions, and importantly also to work towards making sure that such infractions that are reported are addressed.
The Minister of Labour had promised not once, not twice at different fora that by the end of September, Nigerian workers will have a new minimum wage. Now, he has argued that there's no provision for it in the budget, and he has also argued that the tripartite committee has to agree at a definite price before Nigerian workers can actually benefit from this. So I'd like to ask you, what are your expectations? What is the Nigerian Labour Congress plan to ensure that Nigerian workers don't wait any longer?
Well, let me try to put the issues into perspective. First is to the effect that the tripartite committee to negotiate the minimum wage have been working assiduously to try to make sure that they are able to discharge this responsibility within the timeline that the committee have agreed to set up for itself. And on the issue of the budget, this is not also the first time that the issue of minimum wage have been discussed in this country. In fact, the discussion on the minimum wage have started since '81. That's when we first had the minimum wage. The procedure is that, because you can't also budget on the figure you don't know. The procedure, and even in 2011, once it is agreed, then even if it means supplementary budget, that's the process. That's why the provision of supplementary budget is there. So to hide under there is not in this year budget, I'm not sure is something that can be defended.
Can Labour meet up with the time of presenting the petition for September?
Certainly, it's the tripartite committee agreed that they have a timeline to discharge this responsibility. The first step is for the committee to finish its work and hand over to the executive who constituted the committee. And it's for them then to push the process to the next level. For us, we are committed to ensuring that the timeline that we set out for ourselves at the committee level, of which government was there, the employers were there, and organized labor were there. All of us agree. This work, what timeline can we finish and discharge our responsibility and hand over? Everybody agreed on that. And therefore, we are committed to that timeline. Is part of the responsibility that has to be discharged. And from that level, we will also know whether there is any commitment to the effect that the tripartite committee, after finishing their work, then the executive will have to tell the workers and all of us whether they are desirous of reviewing the minimum wage, because one is about also a process. One, the process of reviewing the minimum wage is a process that is well established. We have agreed on a 5-year cycle during the last negotiation, which is due almost 2 years behind schedule. And therefore, when you look at also the parameters of increases that have happened and that the fact that the salary of workers have remained static. One example is even the tariff on electricity. You know that Nigerians have actually been complaining over the yoke of
for nothing.
Exorbitant tariffs that people are paying. And they have refused to give people meters. Customers have been crying, workers have been crying, and this has been a way of exploiting Nigerians. This one aspect. You also know that one important aspect is the oil and gas, where the price also have been increased. During the process of looking at palliative for workers, it was agreed that the only way to address this issue is also to review the minimum wage, so that the effects of the increase can also be accommodated. The third one is the issue of inflation. The minimum wage was $150 as far back as 2011. Now it's less than $50. So clearly speaking, there is no way we can justify the fact that we want workers to continue to work. We want to address the issue of poverty. We want to also address the issue of inequality. But importantly, even the issue of corruption. Nobody can fight corruption on an empty stomach. And therefore, workers must be able to also have a decent living. People are employed so that they can be able to work and take care of their family. Nobody works just for the sake of it. It's not charity. Once you do charity, it's a different thing. But clearly speaking, this is something that is at the heart of all Nigerian workers and pensioners. And they are very expectant. And therefore, it's something that organized labor is also very committed about. And we hope that other social partners will be committed to this process. Because clearly speaking also, there is a level to the patient of those workers. You can see at the last May Day what happened, not this one, the one of 2007, on this issue alone, because it's very central to them. And we have received also commitment at different levels. You are aware that the Vice President was there, he reinforces his commitment. When the President was constituting the minimum wage, he reinforced his commitment. But if there is any change, we also thought that it should be very clear so that we don't also try to bring about issues that are avoidable and also issues that we know is quite very central to the issue of industrial relation. Because once commitments are made, it's expected that this commitment should be made. So on our own part, we are committed to ensuring that whatever our role is, we'll be able to discharge it effectively to defend the interests of the workers and the poor pensioners. Because there is no justification anywhere to say that the issue of the minimum wage should be put in abeyance or that workers should not be able to get a new minimum wage. This, I think, should be not under any consideration because of the fact that even in the years past, this same argument have came about. And I hope that it's not an argument that will try to now put workers at a very difficult situation and position that they needed to also to exercise their rights and also ensure that they are able to bargain. Workers shouldn't bargain very hard, and at the end of the day, they get very little. That is not what is expected.
Talking about bargaining,
yeah.
You have actually said presented 66,500. Am I correct?
Yes.
How visible is this?
Because
owing to the fact that the government
in fact,
is already making excuses?
we are very, very considerate. In fact, organized labor is very, very considerate. What we merely did was to bring about the value of 18,000. The value that used to be around $150. That's the only thing we did, because inflation have taken away the gain of even the 18,000. So we have been very considerate, and we have put all factors into consideration, including the issue of ability to pay, including the issue of that, yes, the country is coming out of a difficult period. All of these factors have been put together, and that's why I think organized labor have been very, very considerate. And let me make the point. Many state governments have also, looking at the condition of their workers, have actually made submissions that are really encouraging. Many states, I can cite them. Employers of labor, NECA, have also said yes, they must look at how to respect a collective bargaining agreement that was agreed 5 years ago. So you can't change the goalposts when you are almost in the middle of the game. And therefore, I think some of those arguments and logic, I think they are not something that is very helpful. We should be able to look at a solution that will be helpful. And I think people should not also make the situation and process very difficult, because it will not, at the end of the day, serve any purpose. The workers are Nigerians. Everybody knows the difficulty that workers have gone through. The salary have been fixed, but cost of goods and services have more than tripled. This is the reality. So if the fact is the reality, we must find a way to make sure that this issue is addressed.
Talking about child labor, there are lots of expectations in actually ensuring that child labor is being eliminated, and also children have access to quality education. What are your roadmap in ensuring that Nigeria is not actually left behind?
Well, there is a particular convention on the issue of child labor, of which Nigeria have made a lot of effort. I'm aware that on the Committee of Application of Standards, that issue have come under scrutiny, and Nigeria had been requested to try to review the law to conform with new realities, of which I think labor has played its part by making sure that we are able to make some recommendations. But above all is the fact also that we must be able to, as a country, conform to international best practice and respect standards. So I think even the Child Rights Act that Nigeria has actually promulgated is in line with what ILO has encouraged, that children should be allowed and encouraged to be in school, and there should be an age limit for children to now go into work. So for me, I think that is encouraging, and I think Nigeria has made some progress with that Child Rights Act. Will encourage states to actually domesticate those laws and make sure that they are implementable. And because education still remains the best way to address the issue of inequality and poverty in our society. So we are committed to that, and that's why we have actually supported all processes that are supposed to be put in place to actually encourage children education, but importantly also the Child Rights Act.
Finally, I'm concerned about the rate at which casualization of workers has tripled in the country, and that doesn't encourage decent work, especially when it comes to international best practice. What's your take on this?
Well, I agree with you. In fact, all forms of employment are now finding their way into our country, and that is not good for our people, because those that are being casualized are Nigerians. They are working under conditions akin to slavery. This is not good for our system, because you will have people that are working, but yet they are like a pool of the working poor. How will you imagine that a worker job will be subcontracted to many? He doesn't even know who is his employer. He doesn't have employment letter, and he can be sacked at will, and there is no social security cover. Many countries around the world are actually fighting against this type of exploitative labor. And therefore, Nigeria Labour Congress, if you are aware, during the World Decent Work Day, we led many workers to picket many companies. You remember the case of MTN? Many companies in Lagos were able to do that, and many banks. So we will continue to do that, and we will continue to give these workers protection, whether they are unionized or not. The fact is that they are Nigerians, and if they are Nigerians, they require protection. How for you can you imagine that in so many cases, a worker will work for 30, 40 years. he will be disengaged without a single dime as a benefit package. They have used better part of his life, and at the end of the day, he's discarded just as a waste material. That will not go well for our system. That will mean that such workers will not be able to take care of their families, and therefore there will be disconnect, there will be social instability, and there will be a lot of challenges. And therefore we must be able to protect our citizens from such exploitative tendencies, because this is akin to slave labor. So we'll do our best, as we have been doing, because it's also a standard that is not decent. The standard here is decent work. Decent work for peace and resilience. That's the standard that ILO is preaching, not indecent or undecent jobs. So clearly speaking, we will conform to the ILO standard, and will also encourage the Federal Ministry of Labour, one, to strengthen the inspectorate division. We must be able to have quality labor inspectors going from factory to factory, and also this issue of licensing all manner of labor brokers. We must be able to protect the centrality of the rights of Nigerians as citizens, and also because of the unemployment issue, a lot of things are going on. So we must also protect our people, because elsewhere people are protecting their people. Businesses are for profit, yes, we know, but even if they are for profit, they must also recognize and also protect human dignity. People should be able to work with dignity, not working as slaves. So clearly speaking, we are for decent work, and will continue to support our unions, support our workers to fight this ill caused by casualization and lack of decent jobs.
It's good to have you on the program.
Well, thank you very much, Sharon. I appreciate it. Thank you for this opportunity.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember, labor creates wealth.